What up, y'all? Denver Nuggets schedule release is here. We got to talk about these high-profile games the Denver Nuggets are going to see, how many back-to-backs they're going to have this year, how many national televised games do they get. Christmas, it has a little bit of a different twist to it than it did last year, but it's going to be an amazing game nonetheless. You're going to see some opportunity to get an NBA Finals preview, perhaps. Y'all, we got to talk about all that and more. Y'all know what time it is, y'all. Let's get it. Y'all, as always, today's episode is brought by BetUS. Thank you to BetUS for sponsoring this live stream. Yo, once again, if you want to sign up for BetUS, make sure to use the link in the description after the show. Y'all, the Denver Nuggets got a great schedule coming out, man. I'm actually really excited to get into some of the details behind their schedule. Let's tap into it. Let's look at it real quick, y'all, because there's a lot of stuff I think that's really going to change the way the Nuggets are kind of being cautious and aware about this year, and then really how they're going to target and attack this season. You know, everybody kind of saw at the end of the year, they got exhausted. They went for the number one seed and ultimately ended up affecting them a lot. But this is going to be an interesting decision time for them because there's a lot of very winnable games, but they're going to be challenged a lot to start the year off. So as you see here, the Denver Nuggets are opening up the season versus the OKC Thunder. I hope that's big enough for everybody to see. The Nuggets are opening up the season versus the OKC Thunder. I think that's going to be an incredible game. That's going to be an incredible game. I think OKC is going to be a lock for about 57 wins. That might be a lot. That might be a lot. Maybe that's a little bit too much, but I think 57 wins is definitely on the table for them. I'll be willing to argue they're going to win 60. I think Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Alex Caruso, Lou Dort, Cason Wallace, Kenrich Williams, with having J-Dub and Chet, Isaiah Hartenstein, that team is about to be really, really good. I'm really excited to see that opening night matchup. And obviously, you got Jokic versus SGA, the top two MVP finishers this last season. This is going to be SGA's best chance to win the award. I think that he very well could win it. And I'm excited to see the three-time MVP versus SGA. This is going to be a really, really, really good and interesting matchup. And then they're playing versus the Clippers. Now, this Clippers game is going to be in Denver. So we're not going to get a chance to see the new, I think the Intuit Stadium, that they're the Intuit Arena that they're going to be opening up in LA, but this is going to be a good game nonetheless. I think James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, I think also being able to have DJJ, obviously Vika Zubac, a really good player, gives the Denver Nuggets a lot of fits. I do think that this is going to be a great game. They're going to then play their first back-to-back of the year versus Toronto and Brooklyn. Now, they play 16. They play 16 back-to-backs this year. 16 back-to-backs. So that's going to be a bit of a challenge. I think that they're going to have to really do a good job at managing their rest, at managing who's playing when, and just managing that they're just going to have to be able to take some not fully advantageous lineups out there, especially versus the Brooklyn and Toronto matchup. Now, it's so early in the season that they're not going to probably sit anybody, but I mean, that very well could be like an opportunity there. If they wanted to sit Jamal or wanted to sit somebody else, they could. But that's going to be their first back-to-back this year. They didn't play versus Minnesota. And look at this back-to-back, y'all. They play Minnesota and Utah on back-to-back nights. To start the season off, 4 of their first 6 games are involved in a back-to-back. 4 of their first 6 games. That's hellacious. And they're doing the Minnesota, which is on the other side of the country, basically, versus Utah. That's going to be interesting. That Minnesota matchup is going to be huge, obviously, especially playing in Minnesota. They're going to come out really physical. They're going to come out really aggressive because they want to set the tone early on. That's going to be the Nuggets' true second national televised game of the year. NBA TV games do count as nationally televised games, but just because when they're on the court, when they're on the television, NBA TV, you kind of got to watch them. They come with a TV package, but whatever. Then they're playing versus Toronto. They play OKC again. They play at OKC in Denver again. That's a 9 p.m. game. So to start the year off, and then they have Miami, and then they have Dallas. So to start the year, The biggest games they have through the first 10 games are going to be OKC, the Clippers, Minnesota, OKC again, Miami, and Dallas. So they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of their first 10 games, I think, are against really good playoff level teams. I think Toronto and Brooklyn, they're going to be fighting for sure. But I can guarantee that Miami, that Dallas, OKC, Minnesota, and the Clippers are all going to be fighting for playoff spots this year. So if I had to give my estimate, my rough estimate for what their win-loss record will be, and let me know in the chat. Let me know in the chat, what do you think the Nuggets win-loss record will be the first 10 games of the year? My unofficial prediction for the first 10 games, I think they can start 2-0 this year because they're going to be playing in Denver. I think they can actually beat Toronto and Brooklyn on the back-to-back. I think they lose that Minnesota game in Minnesota. I think they beat Utah in Denver. I think they can beat Toronto. I think they can lose to OKC, and I think they beat Miami, beat Dallas. So I'm predicting they could go 8-2 in this stretch. Now, at the worst, they could go 6-4. I think there's a very real possibility they split the OKC late in the Clippers matchups, and then they end up losing to OKC again. They end up losing to Dallas. That's all on play. But I think 6-4 is a floor. I think 8-2 is about where I would have them. Now their ceiling could be even higher than that, but I think 8-2 is fairly reasonable given how they're going to have to start off this year. That way they don't put themselves in the bind to end. All right, next 10 games, y'all. They got New Orleans. These are the in-season, the emeritus in-season NBA tournament games. They got New Orleans, Memphis, and Dallas. And they have Memphis in there. This is a regular game. But they go a while without playing a nationally televised game. Then they play versus Dallas. It's going to be 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That game's going to be played. New Orleans, and at Memphis twice, and then Dallas, and then the Lakers. That's a nice run of schedule. Now, Memphis is going to be cold-blooded this year. I think Memphis can be a top 4 or 5 seed this year. They're going to be really nice. I think with Zach Edey, getting back Ja Morant, obviously, having Jarrett Allen Jr., having Gabe Jackson, coming off the bench, having Marcus Smart, Desmond Bane, GG Jackson, rather, not Gabe Jackson, GG Jackson. They're going to have a really good opportunity to be a top 4 or 5 seed this year. I think that Dallas game is going to be really good. Both of the Dallas games are going to be really important because Dallas obviously coming off an NBA Finals berth. Playing versus the Lakers is always it's always a fight. It's always an instant classic. And then you got the New York Knicks that they're playing. New York Knicks in Denver. And then they got Utah at Utah. They got the Clippers, and they got Golden State. In this stretch, the games I'm most excited for in this next 10, the Dallas game in Denver, the Laker game, the New York game, and then that Golden State game. I'm really excited to see that. I want to see Steph Curry, Buddy Hield, and then hopefully Andrew Wiggins has a bounce back here. Draymond Green, Jace Jackson Davis getting a start, Pods. That's going to be a fun team to watch. They might not end up being that good. That's going to be a fun team to watch. The Knicks, I think the Knicks can make the NBA Finals, y'all. I'm not tripping. I think that the Knicks could make the NBA Finals. I think they're that good. I think that the Knicks with Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo, Mitchell Robinson, Julius Randle, Miles McBride, with Tom Thibodeau, they could make the NBA Finals. They're going to have to get stuff to break their way. They're going to have to beat the best teams in the East, especially the Celtics, but they have a pathway to do so. And then they have Cleveland after that Golden State game. So then they go a little bit of not an easier part of their schedule at all, but then they play Washington and Atlanta. Those should be wins. Portland should be wins. At New Orleans, again, New Orleans with no real center, definitely should be a win. Then they got Phoenix, so they play Phoenix 2 days before Christmas, and then they play in Phoenix for Christmas. Both of those are going to be really good games. Yusuf Nurkic versus Jokic is also always a battle. Kevin Durant, his newfound beef that he has with the Nuggets fans, and apparently, I'm too high on Jokic myself. This is going to be an interesting matchup to see them play twice, and this is going to be a great fans game, I think. This is the great game for duo of games for fans to get involved with that want to kind of chime into the KD chatter a little bit. And then they got, after that, Cleveland, Detroit, Utah, Atlanta, San Antonio. I think San Antonio can push for 35 wins this year, so they're going to be a tough out for everybody. But this is one of the games right here, that Boston game. So I believe in the month, let me count this out. So 1, 2, so we got from the 32nd game to the 48th game. They have 17 games, I believe. They have in the month of January. That's a lot of freaking games, y'all. So this is going to be a battle-tested month. But the thing is, I don't love about this, they're playing Boston on TNT, and they come right back in Denver, and they play the Clippers on a back-to-back. Why not space that out? Maybe the Clippers aren't that good next year, though. You know, some people think they're going to be not great. They're going to be in the play-in. I think they're still going to be a really competitive team with Harden and Kawhi. But that's going to be a great matchup versus Boston. I think everybody in the NBA wants that, or most people in the NBA want to see those two teams play in the NBA Finals. And then whoever, you know, I just think that's just going to be a really good matchup. Then Dallas, they play at Dallas twice in a row. So they got San Antonio twice in a row, and San Antonio on a back-to-back, and they got Dallas with the day in between in Dallas. So that's going to be, again, an MLB-style game. Then they got Houston. They're at Miami, Orlando. This whole bracket right here. So they got Philly in Denver on the 21st. They got Sacramento on the 23rd. This is rivalry week right here, I believe. They got Philly in Denver, Sac in Denver. Then they got Minnesota in Minnesota. Interesting rivalry week. And then they go to Chicago. They're playing at New York, ESPN, at Philly, ESPN. Back-to-back ESPN games for Denver. And then they got Charlotte. They got a doubleheader basically versus New Orleans at home, Orlando at home, at Phoenix, and then Portland, Charlotte. So again, a place to pick up a lot of wins at Charlotte versus both New Orleans versus Orlando versus Phoenix versus Portland, Charlotte, and then the Lakers. So the Lakers, Charlotte, Portland, they have to be able to secure those victories. That's going to help them down the line. Then they got Indiana. They get Milwaukee, Boston again to close out that Boston rivalry matchup, Sacramento, Phoenix, and then 2 OKC games. This is going to be an interesting stretch. So they might be fighting for the top of the Western Conference by this point, and you're going to get at OKC twice in a row on a back-to-back. 2, again, technically nationally televised games. So the Nuggets are going to go MVP stretch of the season. So basically from 3-7-25 to, well, really, let's say 3-7-25 to 3-19-25. This is your MVP stretch because the Nuggets are playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They're playing 8 games, and 6 of them are going to be on national television. Well, really, let's just start here. I mean, if you just look at this MVP stretch, they have, so from games 57 through 70, so 14 games, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of 14 games are going to be nationally televised games. I actually need to tweet that out. That is going to be the narrative week. That's going to be MVP week. That's going to be first team All-NBA week. That's going to be championship week. This is going to be the week where everybody's looking at it and saying, man, like, how good are the Denver Nuggets? Like, what are they going to be able to do this year? Does Jokic deserve yet another, a 4th MVP? You know, he's battling with Embiid and SGA and Tatum and all these dudes. Brunson, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Luka Doncic. Is this going to be? I'm excited for this. That's going to be a really good stretch of basketball. Chat, what do y'all think? That should be a really good stretch of basketball for the Nuggets. Let me see. Let me tweet this out. The NBA MVP narrative. I think that's going to be really good basketball. And I'm actually really excited to see how the Nuggets face against OKC because OKC is going to be able to deploy so many different kinds of lineups. And again, I think they're going to be the first seed because I think they have the youth to do it. And I think they have the top end talent to do it and the depth. So they just have the advantages to be able to do that. So this is going to be a really good stretch of basketball. And I think the Nuggets can have a lot to say about their overall depth and matchup. And then, Christian Brown's going to be really important. Look at this. Christian Brown versus D'Angelo Russell, Austin Reeves. Christian Brown versus Damian Lillard. Christian Brown versus Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Christian Brown versus Bradley Beal and Devin Booker. Christian Brown versus SGA and J-Dub and Kaysen. Christian Brown versus Anthony Edwards. Christian Brown versus, again, Austin Reeves. Christian Brown versus Steph Curry. Christian Brown versus, again, D'Lo and Reeves. Like, Christian's going to have a big role to fill. And this stretch of basketball right here is going to mean a lot for that. And then the Nuggets, they close out April with Minnesota, San Antonio, Golden State, Indiana, Sacramento, Memphis, and Houston. On the other side, we're going to talk about what are they going to have to do to be able to secure the victories and also position themselves well for the end of the season. But y'all, first, from BetUS.
Michael Vick at BetUS.com. Catch an incredible 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits, plus 10% gambler's insurance. BetUS, my online sportsbook and casino.
Y'all, welcome back. Y'all, we're talking about the Denver Nuggets schedule release, and this is going to be really interesting. And somebody beat me to it. I think the first half of the season, shout out Eli, first half of the season, they're going to have to figure out the youth, Russ, and Sarge minutes and lineup so they don't exhaust the core 4 heading to the playoffs of the stretch. That's it right there. That's it right there. So this early stretch of games to start this year off is going to be really big for just formulating their identity in their bench. OKC versus Russ to start the year off. Russ versus the Clippers to start the year off. How does the bench of Russell Westbrook, Julian Strawther, Peyton Watson, more than likely Vlatko Cancar, and Dario Saric and Zeke Nargi, how do they figure that out? Christian Brown right away versus Kawhi Leonard and Harden versus SGA. Making sure that you're solidifying that, hey, the Nuggets, they trusted the right one today. They trusted the right one today that I was going to be able to get the job done and be as good as we need to be. So this is going to be a great opportunity for the Nuggets to set some things straight. Based on the roster and everything we have, I've been thinking about this a lot this offseason. I think the Nuggets are going to win around 53 games next year. I don't know if they need to do any better than that, just because they do need the rest. And they need to make sure they're taking care of their overall health and everything else. And then I think that winning 53 games, Jamal Murray, playing around 65 games this year. Jokic playing around 74 games this year. Michael playing around 76, 78. Aaron Gordon, 68, 70. I mean, that's about where they need to be. Maybe AG 72. And they just need to be able to commit to there's a certain style that we play. There's a certain brand of basketball we play with. And with that, can we make sure that Westbrook and Sarge and others are buying in and that they feel empowered in their role? That's going to be so huge. And the development of Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, and Julian Strawther, especially with no Deron Holmes. With him being out, those youngins are going to have to advance quickly because Malone's going to have to play them. He's going to have to trust them. But they're going to have to earn those minutes. And, Malone's not just going to give it to them. So, how does Christian Brown respond to being a starter? How does Peyton Watson respond to being a guaranteed rotational player? How does Julian Strawther respond to that? That's going to be probably one of the stories of the season behind Christian Brown with the starters. It's going to be imperative that they do the right thing, that they take heed to their schedule, they take heed to their body, and that they're just allowing for themselves to. So it's going to be fun. This is going to be a really fun season. A lot of great games, y'all. Let me know what y'all think in the comments section about what you're seeing. Let me know if you think that the Denver Nuggets, do you feel confident that they're going to be able to win about 53 games this year? What games are the most exciting for you, y'all? That's going to do it. This is your boy Swiper. Y'all know what time it is. I'll see y'all on the other side. NBA season almost here.